Hello, my name is Christina C. Jones, and for the past 8 years, writing Black romance has been a very big part of my life. As you can probably imagine, over that time, I have amassed quite a catalog. I honestly don't even know the actual number, but let's call it 70, and I don't think that's an exaggeration. I might be under. Anyway, I consider myself very blessed to be in a position where I am always picking up new readers. And because of that, there's always going to be someone who has not explored everything in my catalog. And because it's spooky season, I figured what better project from my backlist to bring back to the forefront with this series that I like to call Backlist Baby. Just in my head, I don't use it often in public. Some of the videos are titled that, but I don't know. Anyway, I figured what better titles to bring to the forefront than my paranormal series. Now listen, I know that paranormal is not everybody's cup of tea. Believe it or not, I'm not a fan of being scared. I do not watch horror movies like that. It's just gonna be a no for me. With the exception of I like vampire movies and stuff like that, because I don't believe in vampires. I don't believe that those things are real. But any type of like ghost or demonic possession, gonna be a no for me. But the stuff that, werewolves and stuff like that, that I pretty firmly feel are born of our imagination and stories and histories and stuff like that. That stuff I can do, which is how I wound up writing a paranormal series of my own. I published the first book in what became the Eternally Tethered series, Haunted, on March 18th, 2015. So that was 6 years ago, coming up on 7, because March isn't that far away. So coming up on 7 years ago, but we'll just call it 6. The idea had been kind of percolating in my mind for maybe a year before I finally pulled the trigger. You have to understand that at that time, I did not have, I guess, the confidence that I would have now in trying something just completely new. And that's not to say that I wouldn't be scared now, because I totally would be. But back then, it was even scarier. What I heard from a lot of readers was, I don't do paranormal, I don't do that. And I get it because, like I said at the top, I don't play with demons. I'm good on that. And so I understood people's hesitation, but it kind of contributed to that fear of, of pushing through and writing something like that, something that was just completely out of the box for me, and something that I really had not seen much of in Black romance at that time. But I pushed through. This little weird story about this woman who just wakes up one day and just does not feel like herself. She has been putting off this feeling of things just really not being okay with her, this feeling like she's living someone else's life, like she has just woken up and put this outfit that doesn't fit on, only to discover it doesn't. I always try not to do a lot of spoilers in these videos. If you've watched one of my backlist videos, you know that I am just full of trying to contain myself to not say too much. And I feel like it's even more imperative with a story like this. I really, for anyone who has not read Haunted or the other books in the Eternally Tethered series, I said books as if there's not only the one. I don't want to mess up the experience for you by ruining it, but it's not demonic. It's not antithetical to being Christian, which is kind of the vibe that I got from some people. So I introduced this story of, these immortal beings who have been basically, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this again without giving spoilers. Basically, they've just been separated over and over throughout these different periods of time and always have to find their way back to each other over these different periods of time. So you have these elements of the current times, and then also these elements of back when they would have first met, which was, a long time ago, like long before these, these current moments. And that was part of the world building that was very difficult for me. It's still difficult for me figuring out, because it almost would have been easier to base it on a certain mythology, like a certain pre-existing mythology, but you have to be very careful with that as well, because you don't want to get anything wrong. You don't want to mess up, someone's mythology or their stories that are important to them and important to their culture, especially for the sake of fiction, when you could arguably just make something up. And so that's kind of what I did. But the problem with that is that once you make it up, you have to make it all up, and you have to make it make sense. And sometimes when you're going through these things, like even in a normal book where I'm not trying to figure out, okay, these people, they're immortal, but what are the rules of that? And how do they age? And what do they look like as they age? And do they develop powers? It's like, in a normal book, it's hard to keep up with all of, the different things that these characters are going through, the different, the canon that you have established. Then you bring in this other stuff, this otherworldly stuff, and it just makes it even more difficult to keep it all together and make sure that what you're doing is making sense, because you'll put something down and it makes sense to you at the time, but then as the story continues to develop, maybe it doesn't make that much sense anymore. And I think there's probably parts that don't make a ton of sense, but it's fiction, so we just gonna roll with it, So I don't know that I ever really planned to write a second paranormal book. The first one, doing the first one was fun. It was something exciting to kind of work out the story that was in my head. It was something very different from anything that I'd done before. And so it was almost an exercise, which is like a really cool one. But it was an exercise that not a lot of people really took to. Haunted and the Eternally Tethered series, they definitely have their fan base, but the fan base for that is not as large as my whole fan base. It's actually a quite small part of the fan base. And so when you're thinking about taking the time to write a whole book, even if it is a novella, like there's still time, there's still mental energy, there's still resources that you're devoting to that. You have to think about it from a business standpoint, for one, and then not even just that, emotionally it's a little weird, because it's like, well, people weren't really into that, and you almost feel, it almost makes you a little sad, and it stunts even being able to write more if you wanted to. And that's why Haunted came out on, March 18th, 2015. Coveted, which is the second book in the series, Coveted didn't come out until February 2019. Because it took me that long, for one, it took me that long to even feel confident revisiting it. From like from a logistical standpoint, you know, because that is something I have to think about. I write full time. I have to think about it. But also from an emotional standpoint, to be ready mentally for the fact that people are just not going to take to this like they take to my other things. And that's not just in my head. To date, I'm looking at it right here on Amazon. To date, this book only has 84 reviews, which I know, you know, I've further divested myself from that review number, but it's a disparity. When you look at my other titles, there is a disparity there. There just is. And then the third thing that kind of, you know, took time was figuring out how to fix the mistakes that I made in Haunted that would allow Coveted to even make sense for there to even be a second book. Like, there were some changes I had to make, some adjustments, some corrections and stuff like that that I had to make, and I had to be upfront about that with the reader. Like, I need to make these adjustments, and you're going to have to go back and reread that first book, even though, you know, it's 4 years. You needed to reread the first book anyway in order for any of it to make sense. And so there was that. So we get into Coveted, and the second book is always tough. The third book is tougher, but the second book is definitely always tough because you have these rules that you've established in the first book, and you have to, like, that's canon. You have to abide by those. I was able to fudge that a little bit because there were changes that needed to be made to Haunted in order for Coveted to work. But still, like, that was still a difficult thing, because Haunted had these fans that loved it so much. Trying to pull in that same magic with a different couple, it's just, it's a difficult thing, and it's an impossible thing because different couples have different chemistry, and it's something that's a gift and a curse. You know, it's a gift in that you don't have to try to recreate the same magic, but it's a curse in that if people really love that first couple, they love that particular brand of magic that the first couple had, they may not really take to the second couple, and they may not give that second couple a chance because they're not the first couple. And that's something that I've actually run into with most series that I've written. You know, you come out the gate strong, and it's treated like if the second couple or the subsequent couples don't have the same energy that the first couple had, it's treated as if you failed, when it's like, no, it's not a failing. They're different couples. Like, they're different people. The vibe is not going to feel the same. And that's not to knock, you know, anyone who is attracted to the vibe of the first couple or whatever. I just wish that there was it's almost like I wish that each couple were allowed to stand on its own without that comparison. But I know that's not, you know, that's wishful thinking. And so the Eternally Tethered series is very heavy erotica. Well, I won't say very heavy, but it is heavy. Like, that's a heavy element throughout it, because the way that these memories, or the way that this connection is reestablished, it's through sex. Just basically, I don't think that's a huge spoiler, but the way that the connection gets reestablished is through sex. And so you have to the scenes in Haunted are so very specific to that couple. And so the scenes in Coveted, I had to try to make sure they were very specific to that couple. And now with Restored, I have to make sure that they are very specific to this couple. And yes, I did just sneak in a reveal that I am working on book 3 of the Eternally Tethered series, which will be known as Restored. Restored is going to be the story of Erin, who is Aram's sister, and Zaire, who was supposed to be Anselin's betrothed. it's really difficult. It's really, really difficult, because now we come to book 3, which is even harder than book 2 with any series, because okay, you're here now. You've gotta wrap it up. I ended book 2 with a cliffhanger. Why I did that to myself, I don't know why I did that to myself. But here we are. Here we are. And I have to clean that up. I have to close that up. And I have to, we have to come to some sort of conclusion for the villain. We have to establish the continued happily ever afters for all the couples. It's a lot, and I'm gonna be real with you guys. As I talk through it, the less confident I'm feeling in this. My brain is like, what? Like, why? What for? No one was even thinking about this, and then here you go. You had to bring it up, didn't you? But I am nothing if not willing to take on a challenge. Like, that has never, like, throughout these 8 years that I have been writing, it is almost a hallmark of my career that I've been willing to do some stuff. Like, I've been willing to do some stuff that I had no type of blueprint for. I'm just in the dark, and we're just gonna do it. We're just gonna do it the best that we can. And I'm just gonna keep going with it. I'm just gonna keep going with it. I wanted a Halloween release. I was writing something else. I'm sure I won't say I'm sure, you may or may not have seen me start promoting the Predator series, No Longer Afraid, the first book of the Predator series that I was writing and approaching the finish line with. And then I was reminded that I wanted a Halloween release, and honestly, I don't even know if I don't know if this is gonna be done by Halloween, because I've been sick. I was doing a lot, and my body was like, we don't like this, and so we shut down. And so I don't even know if it'll be a Halloween release, but I really, really wanted a Halloween release. And I wanted this to be my Halloween release this year. I wanted the last book. I wanted to finish out the Eternally Tethered series this year. And I will. I'll finish it out this year. Again, I don't know if it's going to be a Halloween release, but it will most likely be my next release. But I'm going to show you guys the cover and the redesigned covers for the entire series. They'll pop up right here. These are the redesigned covers for the series. We put the man on the cover. We put the heroes on the cover for them, just because I know you guys like having the hero on the cover. And I figured, since we're finishing out the series, may as well do something special with the covers, make that switch. I'm going to update the covers. I'm going to update the digital covers for the others. And when I put this will be in paperback, but I'll probably do the compilation, which I like to do when it's novellas, because it's more cost effective for me, and it's more cost effective for the people who want them. If you're in my paperback tier or my Jonesy Box tier over on my Patreon, you will get a paperback set of the compilation. And I think that's it. I didn't want to, y'all know that I will, I'll talk all day, okay? All I need is time and a reason, but I'm bringing it in today. And I think that's it. If you have not read Hunted or Coveted, I definitely believe that they are both worth your time. They are paranormal, but they're not, they're not scary. I don't think they're scary. Like a little unsettling maybe, but I wouldn't say scary personally. They do have a bit of a past and present to them. There's like a tiny bit of like way back historical to them, if you're into that. And I, give it a shot. Even if you're not normally into paranormal, maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't, but I definitely think it's at least worth a shot. And that's all for me today. As always, thank you guys for tuning in and supporting me here on this channel and wherever else. If you like this content, be sure to hit the like button and consider subscribing for more content like this in the future. And yeah, I'm out. Bye.